What I like to tell people is it's so great to pair sustainability up with some other type of background. Architecture, engineering, business, you name it, people want a purpose. They want to be purpose driven. And I truly believe that. I would say the smaller you are, the better it is to start, because the further you go along in your journey, it gets harder to start it.
Welcome to the Canary Report, the podcast where risk leaders, safety professionals, and operational executives come for real-world stories and smarter strategies to keep people safe. I'm your host, Michael Zalle. In each episode, I sit down with exceptional leaders who are transforming how risk and safety are managed. Whether you're a leader of a nationwide EH&S program in a high-risk industry, or you champion workplace safety across 200 retail locations, this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. All right, well, I'm going to begin by saying thank you. Thank you for joining the Canary Report podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zalle, and with me today is Alana Spencer. And thank you for joining us, Elena. And I would like to start by welcoming you and hear a little bit about your background and your story. So
Right.
I'll let you kick it off.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. So Elena rhymes with Dana Spencer, and I'm the Vice President of Sustainability at Clayco. It's a full service turnkey real estate architecture, engineering, and construction firm, mainly across the US with about 4,000 employees. And so I oversee sustainability from a corporate level and how it disseminates to all of our business units and then on every single project. Our North Star is Science-Based Targets Initiative, which is a decarbonization commitment for all of our buildings and all of our projects by 2050. It's a large undertaking, but everyone's in it and is willing to lead the charge.
So you're responsible for sustainability for the entire organization. You've got 4,000 employees, which service probably, if I'm guessing, tens of thousands of clients.
And hundreds of projects simultaneously throughout any year.
What does a project that you would be brought into on the sustainability side look like? Like, what does that, when somebody says, I need to call on Elena and find out how we can make sure that we do the best things for the sustainability goals. What does it look like? How do you get involved?
Yeah. So best practice is to get sustainability involved at the forefront of every single project. So typically in the pursuit phase, and so that we can create a strategy for each client that integrates sustainability seamlessly. So what I do is generally research each client's sustainability goals, whatever publicly available or whatever they've provided us prior to the pursuit or the project. And I really try to think about, with our capabilities and expertise, how can we create something that's unique and innovative for them while they'll still meet their sustainability goals? So it's really key to come in at the beginning, work with all team members as possible, and it could even be from external teams, so that full project team, and figure out what are our responsibilities for sustainability so we can all implement. And really what it does is unlock more value for clients. So if we're able to get them on track with their sustainability goals on each project, they're publicly meeting all of their commitments. They could have unlocked a better ROI for energy and water consumption operationally. And really that sequence of smart start is crucial to a successful project.
So you talked about water consumption specifically. Is there a type of, when do you deal with like energy versus water consumption? Like how do you determine, as much as I hate to say it, the low-hanging fruit of sustainability, the things that are kind of easier or more clear that you can make an impact quickly? How does that look?
Yeah, there's an order of magnitude for all of the key metrics for sustainability, and it just depends on which ones are most material to you. So energy, water, carbon, waste are pretty standard, but there might be some other things you want to add in there: innovation, health and wellness, types of governance. And there are some low-hanging fruit in each of those categories that you can start to implement in the project and the strategy. And energy and water are very interesting because often there's a nexus. So if you're very energy efficient, you might be less water efficient. So there's always a balance. And we do work on a lot of industrial and data centers at Clayco. So it's always managing that balance of how do we reduce while not overstraining the other resources?
Got it. So, in other words, what you're trying to not do is make it a non-viable business just by me. I always say that because I'm in the safety world that I live in quite a bit, the best way to stay safe is to stay home and not do any business and not generate any revenue and surround everybody with bubble wrap. But you wouldn't have a business. It's not sustainable. You can't do that. And so there is always that trade-off of what you can do versus what is viable. From a measurement perspective, how often, what is the process that you go through with your client? So you do your research, you find out what's publicly available, you talk to them, you set a benchmark, and it's company-wide, right? Generally speaking, or is it
Really?
yeah. Or is it one facility? Do you focus on each facility at a time, or do you go as a overarching company objective?
So we do take our company objectives and see how they fit into the clients. And luckily with Science Based Targets Initiative, a lot of our clients have also signed up or follow the GHG protocol. And what's nice is we can partner with people that are like for like. We understand the challenges and we can help to apply it to every single project. So from that standpoint, we're really taking from what we know and we're giving it to them so that it aligns with all of their goals. And, for each project, ideally we have sustainability on every single project because we would like to have goals and achieve something everywhere. That's the only way we're going to meet our 2050 goals. And that's the only way clients will either. So I am working on generally simultaneously multiple projects, but mainly at the upfront, at the strategy and figuring out a roadmap. What should we do throughout each phase of construction for the project and who's responsible for what?
Again, I don't deal in sustainability very often, which is actually really exciting to have this conversation because I'm always heavily in safety specifically. But in the safety world, you'll do site surveys, you'll go through monthly or quarterly, if at least twice a year at every location and kind of do a check and see how we're improving. I always like to say, you're doing 97% of the things well, 3% you need to improve. And that's the mindset of Yellowbird, but it's also the mindset of most companies that are successful of pointing out the good that people are doing. First question is, what are the metrics that you use to judge or to measure progress? And then how do you go about on an ongoing basis having somebody or something or a system in place to consistently measure the progress, or if there isn't any, hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm sure at times it does. So, yeah.
Yeah, so really it starts with target setting at the beginning of a project. What are the goals you would like to achieve for energy, water, waste, carbon, and even some materials, structural materials with embodied carbon? And once you start to collect data and understand the design and the construction elements of each project, you can start to target what you can actually achieve. And if there are any design or even construction measures that change, we can take that data or that change and figure out what does that mean in terms of, let's just say, your energy goal. If we swap out double pane glazing for triple pane, you're probably going to have a better energy performance score, especially if you're surrounding the building with it. So we're able to take all those elements, and the bedrock of sustainability is like safety. It's data. Without it, we can't survive. So the more that we collect on every single project, and usually we try to do it on a monthly interval, it just keeps it consistent. And then it's a better month over month description of what's really happening. Then we can let clients know here's where we are currently in terms of energy performance. And these are the measures that could get you to a higher reduction, or these were the changes that happened recently that are actually going against the reduction.
Okay. And so from a ongoing perspective, that's during the construction phase or during the build out phase of your client. Do you also continue past the end of the, okay, now we've got this beautiful building with triple pane and all the things that you'd recommend. Do you go on an ongoing basis and monitor and measure how accurate you were in the energy consumption or water consumption or whatever else that you have focused on?
So ideally, you do want that. And after a building is performing after 12 months to 24 months, it's nice to recalibrate an energy model or a predictive energy model to see how was it operating per the predictive model. It doesn't always happen, but when a client asks, can we see how we're actually performing against what we had predicted? We do the analysis for them. There's always a variance, but it's just really nice to see the real-time data instead of the simulated.
How do you execute that? Like, so from you've got thousands of clients and thousands of projects at any given time that have been completed. How do you execute the ongoing surveys or reviews? How is that done? Is it done with Clayco employees? Is it done with outsourcing? What do you do?
Yeah, it's not just me. Obviously, there's a dynamic team behind me, and they specialize in consulting, but also corporate sustainability. And we also have an arm that does mostly data collection. So what they do, if a building's operational, really what we're looking for is utility bills. And we collect that data, and then we can figure out, the cost against what we projected or benchmarked for energy. And then during the design phase, it's all a lot of estimated predictions based on if you do this, you will use this much energy. So the team internally, they really support these sustainability initiatives for not only Clayco, but for our clients. So it generally is in-house, but we do have some strategic partners.
So from that perspective, on your internal initiatives, obviously, it's not always the least expensive strategy to put sustainability things in place, but it's the best. You have clients that obviously embrace it, and then you have folks who may or may not embrace it. How do you get buy-in besides obviously there's a compliance aspect of some of these things that you have to. But then there's long-term resilience and there's long-term benefits. And how do you get people to come along with you? What's your philosophy around that?
I had a really great mentor who told me once, if anyone ever questions the cost, it's because they don't see the value. So what we need to do is show what the value of these measures are. And quite frankly, I think that sustainability shouldn't be called out on projects. It should just be the design, the construction, the consulting of the project. When you start to key it out, that's where it seems like an add-on and added cost. But when you start to look at it value-wise and what it could mean for the building in terms of you could get incentives during design construction at the state, local level, and also operationally, if you're reducing your energy and water costs, look at that turnaround in terms of what your operating costs really are. So if you start to talk in terms of dollars and cents instead of how you're cutting just your emissions, it speaks to a wider audience, and then they can start to see the value more and more. But like you said, it could be regulations, it could be investor pressure, it could be employees wanting to work for a firm that's responsible. And what we do at Clayco and most of the people in the sustainability community, we're not trying to add cost to projects because we know that will just get crossed off. So we're looking at ways to figure out what is the business case for these different types of measures, materials, processes that make it just a little extra enhancement to the project, but it has that long-term value.
So switching gears for a second, you and I talked about this in our pre-call. You speak on this a lot. You're a mentor to younger people, which I love. One of the things that you said is that when the kids in college are looking to pursue a career in sustainability, you often don't tell them to actually pursue sustainability, but rather something else. Can you elaborate without giving away your punchline?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, honestly, so my background is business. I got lucky by getting an opportunity to get into sustainability. I was working at a firm that asked me, figure out corporate social responsibility and sustainability for our firm. So I fell into it. But I would say success for me really helped with my business background. I was creating business cases. I was helping with financial modeling, the ROI and sustainability. And I realized that backbone of business really helped accelerate my career. And I learned more about sustainability. And so what I like to tell people is it's so great to pair sustainability up with some other type of background, architecture, engineering, business, you name it. And it just gives you more of a superpower so that you can accelerate those goals internally, because you want sustainability to be a business practice and not that team over there or those people do that. We're part of this together, and it's a core principle.
Absolutely. And as you had said earlier, when you're trying to recruit great employees, you're trying to recruit great people, having a philosophy around the future of the environment, the future of the world, the efficiency by which we use the resources that we have, you're going to be able to find other ROI on it. We have that here as well. Our model is extremely efficient, and so we can do things like surveys for Clayco and surveys for other people, and but the efficiency benefit, not getting on airplanes, not driving vehicles, not having to waste resources, it sings to people who are younger, who want to get into this world. And I can tell you firsthand, my son, who's studying architecture at ASU, he one of his projects, and he loved this project. He loves architecture. He's just having a blast. But one of his projects was using compressed earth, I think it's called, or something to that effect. I'm not an architect, obviously, but using the land around this project they were working to build the walls of the structure. And he was saying that from a natural perspective, the temperature control is better, the structural control is better. You can do a lot of things with that. And he was very passionate about it. And I thought to myself, very few people would think about it in the context of actual result of using the sustainable principle. It actually does not only help with the environment and the earth, but it is, a natural product like that is actually better to build with. It may cost a little more perhaps, but at the end of the day, all the other controls that go along with it. And I just found it to be fascinating. And it was right around the time you and I were speaking. And so I wanted to share that story with you.
And I think that to add to that, Michael, this reuse is so important. And we're seeing a lot of that for adaptive reuse and then reducing embodied carbon in buildings. The step before that, though, is always reduction. You don't need that many materials, or design it in a different way so that you don't need as much. And then it's the innovation of the materials for the building. So it's like recycling, if you will, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yes. Well, it's fascinating. A friend of mine is the CHRO, is a Chief Human Resource Officer and General Counsel for a solar recycling company. And they're bringing in all of these solar panels and equipment, and they're recycling them and they're making them usable again, and it's a very efficient process. And I was thinking to myself, even when you're doing the right things, there is a byproduct of those right things that should also have a thesis around this.
For sure. It's the circular economy. It's huge. I imagine that'll boom even more as we start to dive more into sustainability becoming a more common practice. But the reuse and recycling of, like you said, solar panels. Now we're seeing the recycling of batteries from cars. Companies will buy those for reuse. And that second tier circular economy is really booming and a great market to be in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would recommend the young people to really be focusing on that area of the world, because I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there. So from a practical perspective, in your day in and day out job, what is it like managing all these diverse clients, but also internally? Like, you are responsible for, I imagine there's either a P&L or something that you are tied to. And so as you're going down these paths of consulting and advising, how do you get the internal teams to focus on the right areas and energies around your practice?
Another mentor of mine, he once said, people want a purpose. They want to be purpose driven. And I truly believe that. And what I see, especially at Clayco with new hires that come in, they will reach out to me and say, oh, this is really great. You have a sustainability team here. Can you tell me what we do? the initiative and the excitement behind it, it's really heartwarming. And so I see that not just them, everyone in Clayco has some type of reason for wanting to be part of sustainability, whether it's tied to safety, health and wellness, inclusion. And I think that people really want that mission and they know, and they're part of it. So when we're on projects and we're asking for particular data or ways that we can recycle, all of the materials on the site, you see that there's people just invigorated with, oh, I can help out with that, or I could do this, or here's the data. And you just find there's an energy there that really brings us all together. But it's super important to recognize people. So when that happens, we're thanking them. We're in team meetings, we're putting a slide up that says, thank you to all of you. You've made this possible, and let's keep working together. So I think it's important when we start at the corporate level, we have that strategy. It's so high level. How do you connect it to every single day? And that's what we've done in climate action plans at Clayco. And it's basically like every project, here's a checkbox. Do this one thing, do this one thing, do this one thing. And people also feel autonomy. They're not really being told. It's like, this is the responsible thing for you to do today on this project, and we'd like you to execute it. And if you have an innovative way to do it, let us know so that we can change it for other projects as well. So everyone really has to be on board. So it does mean that our executive team is obviously behind it. So I think that's also key, and the wind in sails to make this as successful as it's been.
So you had talked to me about a system that you had, that you kind of designed, that helps you and your clients and your associates basically structure these programs. Can you tell me a little bit about the systems that you have in place? And if they're proprietary, of course, you can leave out whatever you'd like. But I'd really, I try to bring practical, insights into the podcast, and really have folks, sustainability and just the concept of what you do. I think most people understand it conceptually, but because you're a business person and you put a system in place, I'd really love to hear kind of what it looks like practically. And can smaller organizations utilize some of these findings, some of these processes?
Yeah, I'll start with the last part first. I would say the smaller you are, the better it is to start, because the further you go along in your journey, it gets harder to start it. So as soon as possible. And what I would say is find a framework that you want to follow. So there's so many, but like the United Nations SDGs, this is a really great and easy framework to follow as a company to be socially responsible. And then figure out, what does that mean for your business? Does it mean we have to reduce our own energy in our buildings? Okay. And how do we start to do that? But what's the long-term goal? So if it's net zero energy, so net zero carbon emissions by 2030, what is your consumption right now? Then when you start to see net zero or zero, you have to map out each year, what is your reduction? But what does that reduction mean? Everyone can understand to reduce by 5%, but what does that mean? And so it could be many things, from changing out lighting, upgrading your HVAC systems, maybe there's some facade upgrades, and everything has a cost. So you want to figure out what are your lowest hanging fruit up to the things that are just a little bit more expensive, or their capital improvements, so that you can roadmap that out and budget it for the future. So it's taking that big lofty piece and just, it's data. You got to get the data, and you have to understand what is the most materially important for your firm. And that's where I think most companies will just get on the right track instead of, going for science-based targets initiative initially as a small firm. It might be a bit much. There's other roadmaps that you can select that are easier for smaller to mid-sized companies.
So can you explain to me what a zero impact means? I mean, obviously you cannot run a business without utilizing power, which means that you have to offset it by something to get to a zero impact. So how is that measured?
Well, I mean, it's easy to measure, but you're absolutely right. It's so hard to achieve. And like you had said, there has to be an offset. So for us, It depends on your protocol, and also it depends on your definition of net zero energy. There's actually many. And we follow the GHG protocol for Science-Based Targets Initiative. So what we have to do is reduce our carbon emissions for our buildings and our projects without offsetting. It's not allowed. Now, they might change the standard in the future, but for us, there are things out of our grasp that we can't achieve that because we don't have the power to. And so one major thing is grid infrastructure, making sure that grids become greener. And without that, it is a key piece to decarbonization, especially for a company like ours. So we need things outside of ourselves to happen in order to achieve it. And if not, then we might have to look at offsetting just so that we can become net zero.
Got it. At least you have a focus on reduction that you can control.
Exactly. And we'll get to a point where now it's out of control.
So what are the low-hanging fruit items that you have, that you see most organizations, you go in there and you're like, here's the easy stuff. There's going to be really hard stuff, but we know there's some easy stuff. You mentioned lighting. So I imagine, power consumption of the actual light, LEDs and so forth was a big push, 15 years ago, getting everybody from incandescent to LED and other technologies. But what else is, the type of thing that people should be focused on?
Absolutely. And we have a sequence. Everyone follows it, design, construction for sustainability. And generally you start with the building orientation and where it's facing to the sun. So you have, minimal solar heat gain and loss in different times of the year. And then it's all about the massing. So your envelope of your building, the size of your windows, the thickness of the windows and the facade, insulation. So there are things that right there, a lot of times it's code and you're just following code. But if you just kind of orientate the building a little bit differently or change on the south facing side of the building, those windows to be smaller, now you're starting to see better gains in terms of your energy consumption reduction operationally. And so I would say, and then you start to go into, now that's our envelope, that's our structure. How do you size your systems, your mechanical, electrical systems and plumbing to fit inside that? And you never want to start with MEP first because you don't know what you need for consumption wise. So you want to make sure that the structure's designed first and then you size the systems. And then you start to talk about renewables after that. You never talk about it at the beginning because you really don't know what you need and you don't know where you're going to put it all. So that's super interesting. So I would say on every project, an easy upfront analysis on your general energy and water consumptions based on the program type and location of the building, climate region. And you can start to say, hey, this is a humid climate. We really need to start looking at moisture control and how we're orientating the building towards the sun or, away from the sun. So, and those things, they don't cost that much money.
No, not if you think of them up front. It's like most things. If you design them up front that way, then you're going to be in better shape. It's hard to come after the fact. You're not going to come and shift a building by 20 degrees. I mean, maybe, but it's a big expense. Yeah. So unless it's portable, of course. So what you want people to learn about things that you're passionate about or anything that you would like to cover before we wrap, is there anything that you find to be exciting about the industry right now that you're working on personally at Clayco? If somebody wants to, get in touch with you on a project that you're working, is there anything that you want to talk about?
Absolutely. I think there's three main things. I really love helping a client unlock their ESG report and what it means for every single project. So that's one thing I'm extremely excited about. And it's super helpful for not only the client, but then our project team. So now they're starting to correlate that publicly committed report to what it means for projects. And at Clayco, that helps us out too. It changes our mindset of, oh, we also have that report. It relates to us every single day as well. The next one is the circular economy. I think that's going to just blow up. There's so much that can be done in terms of material reuse, building reuse, how we can reduce any kind of waste in our offices and lives every single day. And then embodied carbon. So it's the carbon that's associated with the extraction, manufacturing, and transportation of materials. So it's basically pre-operations. And really right now you see people are looking at concrete and steel primarily, and some others, but primarily. And there are so many other items that we can start to reduce: aluminum, copper, mechanical systems, insulation. So I think we're going to see a lot more in terms of how to further reduce embodied carbon. And I think that'll be really exciting. Different innovative materials and markets and manufacturers. Those three are just really exciting.
Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you for joining me. This was really fun.
Great.
At some point, you and I are going to have to talk about how we can help with your surveys out in the field, because
Absolutely.
I think Yellowbird professionals would not only be well trained to do it, but it would also help move the needle
Yeah.
on educating folks who are out there in the field about what can be done. So I would love to.
Totally.
I'd love to upskill some of our professionals to be able to help you in your endeavors. That would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And if somebody needs to get a hold of you, if they're online or otherwise, you want to give some of your socials or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. On LinkedIn, it's Alana Spencer, Vice President of Clayco. You'll easily be able to find me there, and it has my contact information. So please feel free to reach out. Happy to help.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and look forward to catching up with you again on another episode.
Great. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the Canary Report. If this conversation helped you reframe how you think about risk and safety, please do me a favor. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. We're building a new category of safety and risk leadership, one that's faster and smarter. Leaders who aren't just empowered by tech, but whose wisdom is accelerated by it. To learn more about how Yellowbird's cutting-edge platform is empowering leaders to solve workplace safety and risk challenges faster, smarter, and at scale, visit goyellowbird.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Yellowbird pages to stay up to date. Until next time, lead with clarity, know first, and act fast.